Are we ethically failing the campers that we promised to serve?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
Running camp comes with enough moving parts. UltraCamp keeps registration, payments, and communication in one place so you can spend less time juggling systems and more time building an incredible camp experience. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker.
Hello, Camp Mavericks, and welcome to the Camp Hacker podcast, brought to you by UltraCamp and the Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic. My name is Chris Hudson, and my work focuses on how camps build culture, support staff, and show up honestly for children, families, and staff.
Hey everybody, my name is Jake Sorenson. I'm the director of Sacred Playgrounds, and we generate insights, equip leaders, and connect partners to help camp ministries thrive. We work primarily with Christian summer camps and their partner ministries, but we like to help all of our camp industry thrive. So we're pleased to be back on the CampHacker podcast.
Yeah,
that was close.
That was very close. Last but certainly not least.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Palmer. Happy to be on the podcast for the first time. I am a mom of 4. I am a researcher and consultant for camps, and I'm completing a PhD in camp at the University of Idaho. All my research and consulting work is focused on helping camps to bridge that gap between their amazing mission and these awesome outcomes that they want to promise to participants in their programs. And the way I bridge that gap is helping camps to identify the core staff practices that do just that they can train on, that they can evaluate on and ask the campers about. And so that's kind of what I do.
You're on the right day on the right podcast. Amanda, welcome to the podcast. So happy to have your voice here. I think you're great. Everyone's going to think you're great by the end of this. How did you get connected to this whole camp thing?
So my husband and I had talked about someday in the future, we're going to do something with camp. And there was no connection in our life between our youth and young adulthood at summer camp and then some professional knowledge. So there was a master's program in our town where we'd lived for a while in Moscow, Idaho, and it was in recreation management.
Okay.
So I started a master's program to do something with camp, and I fell in love with research. So I took the absolutely crazy decision to get a PhD. And so it's a PhD in education. All my research is in camp, but I have such a heart for camp. My background is my childhood camp. So that's sort of where I started with this.
I love that. I love that for you. Make camp the center of your life. Everyone who's listening to me, make camp the center of your life if it isn't already the center. Okay. So why I called together this super friends level group of professionals to have this conversation. You're exactly the right people to have this conversation. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about, this industry that we're in. And I've been really thinking about how what we do differs from like straight up childcare, like dropping your kid off at a babysitter. And we have a youth development component to what we are doing. And this is just me. I can't wait to hear if you all agree. But if we are saying this is a youth development experience, we're making a moral claim, not a marketing claim, a moral one. And that comes with certain obligations. We're forming an intentional community and making promises to the parents that their children will, at best, benefit, at worst, be affected by the things that we are doing there in like a long-term cadence, like a long-term situation. And so so I want to start off the conversation this way. One, do you agree, right? Do camps have obligations that a similar service, like a similar business, may not? When I was young, living in Brooklyn, my mom used to drop me off at this woman's house. There was like 30 kids in there, and there were 3 bunk beds, which we all slept on, right? So it was like very Miss Hannigan sort of thing. And all she had to do was keep us alive until 6:30. That was the only promise that she made. Okay. And that's really different from some of the work that we're doing. So would you agree with that? Do we have obligations that other businesses, similar businesses, do not?
I would say yes. I think you're absolutely right, Chris, that we do have an ethical, a moral responsibility for our children. I would say the same thing with, teachers. There's a certain contract when we send kids to school, we expect that they're going to learn and grow in certain ways and not just academically, right? We expect that they're going to learn how to interact with their peers. They're going to learn how to become better humans and function in this world. And so a camp operates in as an educational space.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have educational responsibilities, and we're teaching both the hard skills, things like archery, how to start a fire, and canoeing, and different
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And we're also teaching the soft skills, and that's where we really lean in. And so I think that you're right. We do have that responsibility because parents are expecting that of us.
Mm-hmm.
They're expecting that their kid is going to have a certain experience based on our marketing, with whether that be with the outdoors, with other people, meeting new people, if we're based on the mission of our camp and the values that we hold, and they're going to expect that their kid comes home having grown in
Mm-hmm.
certain ways.
Okay.
Yeah. I would agree for sure with Jake and with you about having an ethical obligation, 100%, especially if we're making promises to them in our mission and our marketing. And I think that like educators, camp fits into an ecosystem of positive youth development, but I think it's a really unique place for character development, for moral development, like you talked about. My background is in a lot of moral development. My doctoral advisor does sports ethics. She's an expert nationally or whatever. And so I think that at camp, one of the biggest things is that for our staff, especially if you're at overnight camp, you don't get to go home at the end of the day, take off your staff hat and go get wasted or whatever it is that
Mm-hmm.
maybe you would do that you wouldn't do in front of your kids. You may be sleeping right there in the cabin and dealing with each other at our worst. And that's when character development and moral development and all of that, I would go further than saying soft skills and saying like essential development of your identity. So
I
I
love
would
that we
say
all
yes.
agree. I love that we all agree. And thank you for listening to Camp Hacker. We're correct. Now, I'm glad that you agree because I want to step into this next part really carefully. If that's true, right? If we're right, which I suspect that we are, just generally as an industry, are we keeping that promise? Where do we fall short? I'm talking generally.
Yeah.
Like you brought up staff, Amanda. This is my thing. Like I think about staff all the time. I'm a staff trainer, constantly trying to find ways to innovate staff training and prepare people for what's coming. And I'm really keyed into what you said. Like they don't get to go home and take their hat off. So when we hire them for this job, in some ways, we are actually making promises to them as well that we were going to take care of their mental health. They're not off, right? So that's just one way I think I can get into that, but I think it's one way sometimes we fail to keep on our promise, particularly the staff, before we can get to the parents and campers. But that's the first thing that comes to mind. What about for you? Like just generally, where do you think the industry is falling down if this is an ethical obligation?
I can I can say I've had experiences at a variety of camps, being kind of on site, a little bit of a fly on the wall without the responsibility to put out fires, but also there with my little yellow notepad. And I've seen camp directors making assumptions about the values, kind of the interpretation of the camp's values when they come in, and assuming that the staff are in alignment with what the camp means about what that value is, if that makes sense. Like I've seen real crossing of boundaries when staff members think that they're like supporting the LGBTQ campers. Staff think this is how we do this. And the directors are saying, oh, that was not at all. That was not what we meant by that. And so I feel like failing is a hard word to hear if you're trying to train staff, but I think there are missed opportunities in some different areas, and clarifying what your values mean in practice, I think, is most essential for what the situation that I'm kind of referring to.
I agree with that, Amanda. I think mission clarity is super important. Being clear up front when you're hiring your staff, what your camp is about, what you're trying to do, what are your goals, being clear with your staff, but also being clear with the parents who are sending their kids so that there is that contract and they understand what you're all about. I appreciate the conversation, and like you, Chris, I want to be a little careful about how we approach this.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, you kind of titled this, and you started with a very provocative question. Are we failing? Are we, ethically failing our campers? And
Because I don't know if you noticed, but I'm dramatic. So
yes. Oh, I've never noticed, my friend. Sarcasm, excuse me, everybody. So don't use that at camp. Don't overuse sarcasm at camp. So in terms of that core question, are we ethically failing our campers? I want to be really careful with that, because ultimately I think no, as an industry, we're not. But I think in some ways we fall short. And I think there are specific things that we can do to be better. And I think sometimes we're succeeding and we're knocking it out of the park, and we're doing so great with the moral and ethical formation of our young people, character formation of our young people. And sometimes we're a little lax in some of these things. And so I think being intentional about this and bringing this in front of people is good, because having that in the front of our mind, that we have this ethical responsibility for these campers and their development, because camp is fundamentally a developmental space that is unique from other spaces. And so these campers are coming, and they're leaving their normal everyday lives, and they're very vulnerable, right, to manipulation. They're very vulnerable to suggestion. They're building these strong relationships with these young adults, with these other campers. And if we're not careful about who we're surrounding them with, and the environment that we're putting them in, and the things that we're teaching intentionally and unintentionally, then we could be leading them down a path that we don't intend.
100%.
And we need to understand what's at stake when a young person is coming to camp, whether it's for the first time or not the first time. They're in a vulnerable state. And it really is a place that they could be manipulated in different ways. And so making sure it's a safe space is priority number one for us. And that's what we talk about in our work at Sacred Playgrounds, is that camp must be a safe space. Physically safe, emotionally safe, socially safe, spiritually safe. It's got to be a safe space to ask questions, to, as Amanda was saying, to explore your identity, and a place that's both affirming and challenging. As we talk about, who is this person in front of me, and how do I make sense of this other? How do I make sense of who I am and who I am becoming in this world? Those are important questions that your campers are asking. And because they're asking these questions, because they're in this time of development and formation, we do have the moral obligation that you are referring to, Chris, to attend to that and be intentional about how we're doing it.
The must in your sentence, like, I love the intensity of it, but it's doing a lot of work, right? We must do it. Agreed. I mean, that's easy for us to say sitting here on our podcast. It's easy to say, but we all cut corners, and we all cut corners, and I will say I don't cut many, but we do cut corners. And when we do, sometimes I wonder, oh God, are we failing the kids? I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I know, actually, I want to go back to something you said, Amanda, because this is where this thought came about values, like grinding your situation down into values, grinding. I wonder how many staff members, I'm going to give everyone an idea. How many staff members know the mission of the camp that they work at? I would just offer your staff a bonus. Like at the end of training week, just be like, hey, everyone, $100 if you can tell us what the mission is. And if everyone knows it, great, you're out a lot of money, but you did a great job. If no one can say it, this is where, and I know ethically failing is super dramatic. It was meant to be, but this is one of those times where I'm like, what are we doing then? If you got to the end of training week and no one knows the mission, then it's that must, like we must do these things, then we can't possibly do them, right? We can't possibly do them. And so is it about just drilling your staff on the mission? No, because we've tried that and it doesn't work. It just doesn't. They just treat it like it's just one more thing they have to memorize.
Your mission should be in action. Your mission should be reflected on.
Talk about that.
Your mission should be, well, I think that a huge part of getting your programs and your mission to happen as you want them to is that staff buy-in. And so you've got to reflect on what your mission and your intended outcomes, which are often your mission, like what those mean, what those look like. And a lot of your outcomes are happening during camp in my experience. Like
Mhm.
we want our campers to have experienced this by the end of camp. We also want them to go on and change the world and have this change their life forever. But thinking about at camp, what do they need to do? What do they need to experience? What do we need to provide for them? That's how I'm working with a lot of like the character grantees to develop what is your character curriculum.
Mhm.
That is, what are those core things they need to experience to get to that development? And we're not going to have perfect character by the end of camp, but what are the things that do build it? And so practicing that in staff training is essential. Practicing the reflection, the speaking it. And so, yeah, I don't love the idea of offering $100 if they can say your mission. I know you're teasing, but I think that I think your staff, whoever's training your staff, should owe $100 if, if your staff
I
can't
love
tell
that.
you in their own words what the mission means and what it
Mhm.
looks like.
Because that means it just wasn't communicated. It just wasn't communicated fully enough. You know, Jake, I can't stop thinking about the way you said we must do these things. We have to keep it physically safe, emotionally safe, socially safe.
Exclusive for CampHacker listeners, grab UltraCamp's free guide, The Parent Experience Checklist. Practical steps to simplify registration and keep families coming back. Download at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker. Parents don't want clunky processes, and you don't want constant phone calls. UltraCamp helps you simplify registration with mobile-friendly forms, offer payment plans that work for your families, reduce calls and emails with automated reminders, and keep parents engaged with built-in communication tools. UltraCamp helps you create smooth, stress-free parent interactions so your team can focus on camp, not customer service. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker.
I don't know how to phrase this, so I'm just going to say it, okay? And then we can workshop it live on the podcast, right?
Let us have it. Let us have it.
Aren't we, look, okay, look, I'm just going to be honest. We lie to parents a lot. I think a lot of camps lie to a lot of parents. And I'm just going to put it out there. Not every camp is safe for every kid, but every camp will say that they are. And I've worked with camps who like contact me specifically, like, we want to make our camp safe for trans kids or safe for queer kids. And I go in there and I'm like, do you think it's a safe space now? And they're like, pretty much. And then we actually walk through it and it is not. And I was like, you've had trans and queer kids at this camp and you're experimenting on them. I don't know if that is appropriate given the relationship that I'm trying to have with these parents. Like when it comes to like the ethical mission, Jake, you say we must do things, we must do things. How do we, and again, I don't know how to ask this. Can we, as a parent, right? You're both parents, right? As a parent,
Yes.
how honest can the camp be with you about their struggle to hit those musts before you are turned off as a customer? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, how can we be a little bit more realistic about what we can do, about what's just possible in this context, taking care of this many kids and educating them? How much transparency do we need? That's a question for both of you, but Jake, I sort of like pointed at you. So
Yeah. No, I think we can be pretty honest because the stories are out there. The stories of not everybody's going to have an amazing, wonderful, life-changing experience at camp. In fact, a minority of kids are going to have a life-changing experience, right? A lot of them are going to have a very positive experience, but there's going to be a fraction that don't have a positive experience. For sometimes that's out of our control, but sometimes it's because we failed in a certain moment, right? We shouldn't think of that as we're failures, but are there opportunities to improve the way that we do things? Is there a learning opportunity for our staff, but also for these campers? And are we following up and following through effectively as we communicate with those parents what happened and what we're going to be doing differently because of that? And so we can't foresee every situation, and we're not always going to be our best selves. And we can't expect that our young adult summer staff, these 19, 20-year-old, 18-year-olds are going to be their best selves all the time when they're short on sleep, when they're frustrated, when something's going on back at home and they can't deal with it because they've got this job that requires them to be at camp all the time. So how can we, when challenges come up, how can we work through them and say that that's part of what we do at camp? when somebody's feelings are hurt, we work through them.
Mhm.
We expect that some of these things are going to happen, but because when we put people together that come from different spaces, we put them in the same place and we say, okay, we're going to be together and we're going to be a community.
Mhm.
Communities have friction, right? Camp is messy. People are going to get messed up.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, but there's going to be physically, you know, you're going to get
Mhm.
dirty. You know, you might get a bump on the head or a bump on the elbow. And emotionally and socially, there's going to be some
yeah.
challenges.
Mhm.
And we expect there to be some of these challenges, and and that's going to result in some people feeling uncomfortable or feeling hurt. And the question is now, how do we work through that?
Yeah.
It might be a misunderstanding, but it might not be a misunderstanding,
Mhm.
right? It might be something that somebody did that is against your policy or is not what you would have hoped that they had done or said. And then how do we work through that towards reconciliation and forgiveness? Because that's one of those key things that we learn at camp. We learn how to work through these things. We learn how to work with people that we might not otherwise hang out with. We don't just stay in our silos and say,
Mhm.
I'm going to find a community that agrees with me. We put people that don't always agree with each other together. And we think that that creates better societies.
So, and Amanda, I'm turning this towards you then. Like, it's the same exact question, but before you talk as like a camp person, I want you to talk as a parent about how much of that transparency and honesty you could tolerate before you're like, not this program. Can you speak on that?
Absolutely. And I have some very significant personal experiences with
Mhm.
this with as a parent. I'm in I'm in deep red Idaho, but a little blue dot for the most part in
Mhm.
Moscow. But I've got a kid who's incredible and he's trans and he's gone to several different camps. And
Mhm.
Idaho's not the best place for handling bathrooms and things like that and pronouns, and you've got a varied community here. So what I would say, because we have dealt with what's going to happen with this ahead of time, talking about like what's the bathroom situation, where is he changing for the pool, like that kind of thing. And I mean, he's young, he's 9, and so this is like age 8, age 7, talking about this stuff. And so what I have found as a parent where that deal breaker would be is, and a lot of this, Jake, you just addressed, is what are they going to do when, I mean, what did they do when
Mhm.
something rough happened? But also, what else are they doing about everything other than my kid's gender identity in terms of like, what else is happening at camp so that my kid still wants to go back? Like, there's a part of the camp experience that's a struggle for him. And what else is happening that makes him still feel safe, still feel supported as a human, as a kid, to do all the cool things. And so, like, because I'm not a camp director and haven't been one, but I can feel from camp directors how deeply they feel it if they think they failed a camper or a staff member.
Mhm.
And there is one experience, but there's also the rest of the experience. And so you may be struggling in that one area, helping particular campers of color, campers of a particular gender identity or life experience or something. But what else are you doing to provide the rest of the safety of the love and joy and making them want to come back? So for me, as a parent of a very vulnerable child, like I'm also paying attention to everything else that's happening. So it's the intentions to making amends, and how hard are you trying otherwise to do everything you do have the knowledge and skills already about? So for me, yeah.
That was epic. When you were
Thanks.
talking, I was so pulled into that. No, that's really very powerful. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. I certainly didn't, just so everyone knows, I did not ask Amanda to come in here and talk about her family, but thank you very much for sharing that because I think that will help people. I think people need to hear that for sure.
I just think that people feel so horrible,
Hmm.
camp directors and leaders and counselors, when they know like, oh, that hurt somebody. And because you have such a heart for kids and not always the experience and knowledge and training and skills and systems. I know
Mm.
you've talked, Chris, about systems, and I love that. And Jake too, you've got a whole structure of essential systems at camp for building these essential elements of a positive camp experience for growth. And so, like, yeah, it's just not taking a keyhole look at camp. It's how are you supporting the kid in every other way when you may be struggling in one way, I guess.
If you both had to give advice to like a camp about like, hey, you know, if you were going to say like, hey, you must keep the kids physically safe, emotionally safe, like all these things. This is the things that you must do by dint of calling yourself a youth development organization. What would you suggest? Like, where would you suggest people start? Like, what are camps typically missing? Is it this conversation about emotional and physical safety, or is it about staffing, supervision, marketing, operations in general? Like, where's like one thing you can say, hey, listen, one, codify your values. Two, what is it?
I would,
They could pick up.
I
Where's
mean,
the
the
logo?
first thing that come to my head, I mean, like there's so many things, right? There's so many
Sure.
things to talk about, and it would
Pick
depend on the
one,
specific
Jake.
context. I am picking one. I'm just letting you know that it's not the end all be all, but processing, teaching your staff how to process things, specifically conflict resolution, you know, and learning how we can resolve challenges, interpersonal conflicts in a way that honors the individual and isn't punitive. And so this is something that we can do and we can teach at camp because we're putting people in uncomfortable situations. That's what we do. And we are putting people in social situations where there's somebody's going to say something that they don't mean or something that is intentionally mean and they did mean to be mean. And then how do we respond to that? That becomes the key, not preventing it from happening. I don't think bubble wrapping the kids at camp is what we want to do. And we can be honest with parents about this too. We're putting them in situations that may be uncomfortable sometimes. And we are going to commit ourselves to when those things happen, when real feelings come up, when it's tears of sadness and not tears of joy at camp, that we're equipped to move forward with that and deal with that in a positive way. And so learning how to process difficult situations, whether that's low ropes challenge course or it's something that just comes up, because those things will come up. And they're designed, that camp is designed that way.
I'm gonna build off of that, but Amanda, I want you to go first. I need a minute.
Well, I would 100% amen to Jake's thing about reflection and processing. I think also one thing I would zoom in on, I think that respect is one of the absolute core values for camp, and there's so much to respect. And one thing I've seen is that sometimes camp staff know what respect looks like with one age group, and they maybe don't know what respect looks like with younger age groups or vice versa. And so I think that within staff training, again, I think I said this before, but not making assumptions about, like, yes, we want to respect all of our campers, our whole community, but what does that look like? What does that look like at bedtime? What does that look like at mealtime? What does respect look like with each of these age groups? And let's practice the words and actions. Practice, practice, practice. Like, I have found that the things that have a core curriculum at camp, like you've got leave no trace training, mental health first responder, wilderness first responder, great. You're going to see those in practice because they got a chance to put them into action. You want them to respect the kids. Did they practice? Did you practice the words and the actions?
Love that.
That'd be one thing I'd emphasize.
I'm what I want to say is the perfect union of what you both said, plus like just some rando stuff. One, I think about transparency and parents. Just want to go back there for a second. I think one way that camps can improve is be really clear with parents about what they cannot handle. I think that's super empowering. We'd love to be able to handle your kid, but these are the ways in which that we are not set up to handle the kid, because one, every break, every failure, like every failure is tough, but like a camp break, a kid goes home for homesickness or a parent pulls their kid out. I always think that's not the end of the interaction. That's not the end of our relationship. If you apply for the camp and your kid has emotional issues that I know that we can't set up, or we're going to burn staff unnecessarily to take care of, rather than doing that, approaching the parent and say, listen, our program isn't set up to do that for this reason, this reason, and this reason. I can recommend these other camps, but also I would recommend these questions to ask of all the other camps that you call, because I still want to be seen as a a helpful person. Listen, if I'm taking on youth development and I'm taking on the ethical responsibility of helping you raise your child, then that's part of it. I think this is sometimes because we're also businesses. This gets a little like, hey, you're not my client, you're not my customer. See you later. I think, and this goes back to values, I think that is part of the value for me of camp, right? We're partnering with people to help raise better kids, even if that kid is not appropriate for our camp. So that's the one thing I think that a lot of camps could do better on that. And also admitting to parents, like, we would love to have your trans camper, but we're only 2 years into introducing that to our staff training. And we want to say, like, maybe try us again in 2 or 3 years. We'll be ready then, but we're not ready now. I think that is so powerful. And let me tell you something, that parent will sign up their kid 2 to 3 years from now. They will, because you're telling them what your values are. You know what I mean? So
Thanks,
last
Jake.
looks.
Awesome.
Anybody want to say anything else before we move on? I love this topic. I think we don't talk about it enough, but that's just me.
Thanks for having us on to talk about it.
Listen,
it's a fun conversation. We could talk a long time.
We could go on and
Yeah.
on, and I'm looking at a whole document of like hooks and questions, and I'm like, no, we have to wrap it up. But we can always talk about this again. If there is public
do it.
outcry, we can talk about it again, about our missions and what it means. But right now, it's time for Tool of the Week.
Tool of the week.
So, who's going to go first? There's that, let's see, eeny, meeny, miny, Amanda?
All right. So I had a hard time coming up with a tool of the week. I'm not a camp director, but I am a person who is reluctantly adopting AI a little bit. So I grew up reading very impressionable age, a lot of sci-fi. So I'm like, is it going to take over the world if I use it? Little nervous. Also from a family of journalists and writers. I'm doing a lot of writing as a student, as a researcher. And so I've found that Microsoft Copilot wants to write my articles for Camping Magazine, wants to write my dissertation. I don't want it to. But what I found, so my tip and tool of the week is to figure out how to get your AI friend to ask you great questions. Like, say, what should I be answering in this thing I'm writing? And it can give you great questions without writing it for you, and you're freaking out about plagiarism like I do.
AI is a great thought partner. People look at it as like the scribe, but it is great to bounce ideas off of and structure your thinking. I love that. I'm going to go next because mine's very quick. And Jake, you're going to bring it home. I've been traveling recently, and I got my wallet stolen while I was in Mexico, and I was going to be in Mexico for a month and a half. I got it stolen on day 4.
No.
So I don't have a tool per se, but I do have a tip and trick, which I'm not sure people are aware of. I was freaking out. I was borrowing money from people. I was saying, can you, some shady guy approaches, like, I'll Venmo you $100 if you give it to me in pesos at the ATM. We can go right now. Like, after a while, I didn't feel comfortable. Did you know you can contact your bank, say, hey, I lost my card, and they will issue you a digital number that you can put on your phone so you can tap to pay, which will draw on your account. This was a lifesaver. So I'm going to share that with you. That's my tool of the week, is your bank and their awesome digital abilities to just give you money right on your phone. Can't draw from an ATM unless you can. I don't know where the technology is going, but you can certainly tap to pay. And I look forward to getting home soon and having access to like real cash and real cards. But that's my tip.
Oh man, I'm so sorry about that.
You know what though? It all worked out because I was on the beach while everyone was shoveling out their cars. So I think I'm still winning, I guess. Jake, your
Still
tool of the
winning.
week.
And a tech bro that I know says tap to pay is actually more secure than your credit card. So for what that's worth.
Until the news
Yeah.
says that there's a breach and all of our passwords are available to the Russians. I don't know a lot about tech
Okay,
when it comes to
you're showing
that.
your age now, my
I
friend. Come on now.
Anyway.
All right. My tool of the week is a website and resource and company that works with parents. And so remember that the parents are our primary customer at camp. We sometimes think it's the campers, but it's the parents. And so equipping the parents and giving the parents tools and understanding what they're working with is really important. And so look for tools that you can provide to the parents. You don't always have to produce these tools. And so one of the tools that I use and provide to parents a lot of times is called the Parent Queue. It's the Parent Queue, CUE.org. And they've got a whole bunch of resources. There's a t-shirt that I got my wife that talks about raising resilient, wonderful humans and things like that. And it's got stages of youth development for those who work with different age groups and some tips of working with them. And they've got like great interactive things for parents. So 12 affirmations to speak over your kids. Love it. 10 ways to engage your elementary schooler over the summer. Love it. So a lot of these tools and tricks that are directly for parents to help them in this really challenging task called parenting. Because you guys, parenting's tough. Parenting's really tough. And sometimes we blame the parents for their anxieties and things like that, but it's a tough world to parent in. So give them a break and remember that they're your primary customer and resource and equip them.
And partner with them. Always partner with them, because you're working together on their children, other people's children.
Amen. Yep.
So you guys are great. And everyone listening also thinks you're great. Amanda, if people want more of your greatness, is there a way they can follow up with you online, email? Tell us, how can the people find you and your greatness?
Oh, absolutely. They can email me at acpalmerconsulting@gmail.com, or amandacpalmerconsulting.com is my website. I'm on LinkedIn. I see a lot of mutual friends if you're in the camp world. Yeah, lots of ways to get in touch with me. Here's
Great.
my QR code. No, I'm just kidding.
Jacob, if people want to chase you down in the middle of the night, how can they find you?
Yeah. The best place to go is sacredplaygrounds.com. Sacred Playgrounds, it's plural.com. And then we have a podcast called the Sacred Playgrounds Podcast. You can listen to that wherever you are getting this podcast. And I'm, of course, on LinkedIn and the social media platforms too. So there's lots of different ways to get a hold of me, but going to the website's the easiest way.
Cool. And if you're looking for me, I'm on Instagram at planetchris1, the number 1, or you can email me, planetchris@gmail.com, or just open your door and holler. You don't know. I might be nearby.
Holla.
Before I go, I want to thank the sponsors of this week's episode, as well as our editor, Ryan Vandertorn, and Go Camp Pro's executive producer of podcasting, the Matt Wilfred. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Jake. And thanks for the evening, friends. See ya.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having us.
The Camp Hacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening. Camp Hacker, bringing your world into focus.